back to Coding with Doc. Now, in this second session, what my aim is to build on the stuff you learned on the previous one around coding in Python and to take it so that we can build sequences of text. I'm going to be following, as always, that PRIMM methodology. Let's just look at what that means. So, welcome to this second session where I develop this idea a little bit more fully about sequences, about variables, and about data types. And so variables and data types are going to be the mechanism by which we can store things in a program, and then we can save things in a program and create a little bit more interactivity than we did last time around, where we were just getting things to appear on the screen. And so in order to do this, we've got the idea of what a variable is and how it stores data in the first place. And to realize that to a computer, a variable, while it's like a container that's storing one particular thing, actually can store 4 types of thing. It can store words, which a computer calls a string. It can store a whole number, which we call an integer inside Python. And it can store a float, which we call, which is a decimal number. It can also store another one called Boolean, which stores true and false, but I haven't mentioned that on this particular slide. And we're also hoping in this session to cover with you this idea of input. So last time around we looked at print, and so print simply puts something on the screen. Input is going to gather information from the screen. So very similar command, but a slightly different command in the way that the two work. Now, as previously, I'm going to follow the PRIMM methodology. So predict. Now, on this predict stage, you could write down your answers, but really I want you to look at code, try and read code, just try and understand what it's saying. Don't worry about getting it wrong. Guess, think about it, just guess, look at how it works. Then we run it, so it's just learn to copy it, learn to put it down. Then we investigate it, we try and pull it apart and see how does it work, what makes it break, what doesn't make it break. Then we modify it, and we play with it, we tweak it, we get it to work in a slightly different context, we deliberately break it. And then finally, I'm hoping to be at that make stage where we can make those things that I was talking about earlier. So, the first exercise I want to do with you is this, one that looks at 3 core constructs. Now, this whole topic, this whole beginner sequence of lessons is based around this idea of these 3 constructs. So these aren't words like algorithm, which we covered last time round. These are ways in which we write instructions. So if somebody gave me a list of instructions, one thing that they could use is do this, now do this, now do this, now do this, now do this. It would be a sequence. It follows instruction, do this, do this, do this, do this. These were the kind of the square boxes on the T exercise from last time round, where it's do, one after another. The selections were the diamond boxes, ones where you have to make a decision. Do you want milk in your tea or not? Do you want sugar in your tea or not? And it's forcing you to make a choice. And then the final one is this idea of an iteration, a loop, where it's getting you to go round and repeat a part of the code. And so what I want you to do is to take those 6 bullet points, and either on a mini whiteboard or a piece of paper, I want you to look at those, think about those, and think, which one of each of those might it be? Is it a sequence? Is it a selection? Is it an iteration for each one of the 6 bullet points? Don't worry if you get it wrong. The aim is not to be perfect on this. The aim is to learn. So have a bash. So then, let's go through those answers. Now, the key word here is the word if. And you'll see why in a few lessons' time that matters. But on this first one, it's saying if the program doesn't recognize the username, tell the user. So the computer's making a choice. If it doesn't recognize them, do one thing. If it does recognize them, do another. It would be a diamond in the drawing that we had before, from last time around in terms of flowcharts. It's making that selection. The next one, enter the password in. So it's just do it, and this is how you enter the password in. You put this, then you put this, then you put this. It's a sequence, one thing after another. If the password doesn't match, say it's incorrect. So there's clear there the option that it might be correct or it might be incorrect. So it's a selection again. It's making a choice between one or two things. Now this fourth and fifth one, it's easy to kind of lump them together and just say their iteration. But really the fifth one that says keep asking them the password again is iteration. That's making them go around in a loop, type it in again 4 times. The bit that's adding a number and going, it's got it wrong, it's got it wrong, it's got it wrong, and how to add the number is a sequence. And then that last one, you'll notice that magic little word if again at the beginning. If the password doesn't match, then, sorry, if the password does match, then let them into the program. So that again, we're dealing with a selection. It's got a choice. Has it got a matching password? Has it not got a matching password? Do one thing or do the other based on that decision. Hi, let's get on to a predict example. So here we have a predict exercise. And this predict exercise starts with name equals Andrew, age equals 50, print hello, print you are name, print you are age, that is really old. Now the question is, what will appear on the screen when that's run? Now this is an interesting one because it really asks you to kind of hypothesize what's going to happen. And what's going to happen is that it'll say hello, and then it'll say you are, and it'll look up name, it'll say name's not in the quotes, name's separate. So name must be a variable that I've stored, a kind of a thing that I've kept earlier in the program, and it'll look back in the program and see name is Andrew, and then it'll put you are Andrew. And then you are, and then it comes out of the quotes, so then it looks back in the program for age and says age is a number and it's 50, but it didn't need to be in quotes because it recognized it was a number, so I put 50, that is really old. So that predict is pulling those things onto the screen in that particular way. Now, my next exercise is to ask another question. So again, on your piece of paper or on your mini whiteboard, write down, what do you think of when somebody says the word container? What is a container? Now, clearly, when you hear the word container, you might think of a million things. You could think of something that stores files, like there in the top right, or food, or that's just a kind of a box that people bring to lessons, or a great big storage container that you might send things from one country to another in. A container can mean many, many, many things. And in reality, Python likes these mental containers of its own, where it can store things as it works itself through in the program. And what it's doing with those containers is it's storing things that we put into the program itself. So it assumes to begin with that what we're storing is always text. And it knows that when we come to text, that there are text, and text is words, and it can't work with text. It also knows and recognizes 3 other types of variable, and we'll hopefully pick up either this session or next session how to handle those different types of variables. But it picks up the idea of an integer, which is always a whole number. It can be a negative whole number, but it's always a whole number. A float, a decimal number, or a Boolean, something that's true or false. Now, when Python's recognized those 3 things, it also recognizes that it can only do mathematical exercises like plus, minus, times, divide on it if it is a number, if it's an integer or a float. If it's not a decimal number or a whole number, you can't add words together, or you can't add true and falses together. It doesn't work in that particular way. Now, one last thing before we stop and do some actual coding, and we do some run exercises, and we'll do it in Trinket again together. But one last exercise, or one last mention before we get to that, is to talk to you about the names for things. So I'm sure if your hard drive is anything like mine, It's a really bad idea to have called your documents .1, .2, .3, .4, and you spend ages looking for stuff because you haven't called them sensible names. And the same is true for programs, that you're going to end up storing lots of little things within a program. And so there's very much a kind of an importance placed on calling the containers that we use what they are. So it's obvious what they are. So that not only you know what they are, but anybody else reading your code would go, well, that's a name, or that's their age, or that's the password, or whatever it is that it contains. Now, when you're using these names, you can use numbers or letters or underscores, but you can never begin with a number. And the other kind of practice, a good practice, is try to be consistent with your names. Try to keep the names relatively short. And sometimes people believe very much in using what's called camel case. So you might have capital letters at the start of each word, but no spaces in the middle. Everything's joined together. Other people prefer to put underscores in to create the spaces. If you're using more than, say, 2 words in it, you wouldn't put a space in because you can't use spaces. You're either using the underscore or you are using camel case in order to get around that. Now, with that out of the way, we're now going to do some programming exercises straight in Python, beginning with a run example. Let's turn to the next run example. So, like last time, I want to code with you. And as before, I want to do it by going to Trinket. So if you go to Trinket and inside Trinket, you've clicked in and you've gone to New Trinket, you can then choose and load Python. So if you need to pause for this point and just get all that sorted, that's absolutely fine. But now we're in Trinket. So inside Trinket, you've got the main programming window here on the left and the run window, the way it would look on the screen on the right. So again, if you're using your own setup inside idle or something else, set yours up in a similar way. So your program windows on the left-hand side and your run window, the kind of as it would look on the screen, is on the right-hand side. Now, I want to do now a run exercise. So one where you can simply copy the code I'm writing in. You can pause the video as you want as we're going through and understand what we're doing, but for me to just kind of go through the code with you. So here I'm going to create a variable. So this is like a little container in the computer's memory, which I'm calling player1. And I'm going to say inside that, I want you to store the word Zelda. So there's a box inside the computer's memory called player1, and inside it we've stored the word Zelda. And then equally, I've created now another box. This time around, I've called it player score. You'll notice on both I've not put a space in because, as I said before, you can't. And this time around, I'm going to put the player score as being 0. I don't need to put quotes in. I could if I wanted to, but then it would treat it as a word, not a number, and it gives me that. And then I want to drop a line and I want to go print. Now you remember from last time round, I've got a lowercase print. I can't capitalize it. I could get rid of the brackets, but I'm not going to because you'll see that you can't always get rid of the brackets. And then I'm going to put welcome to the game of, and then put in player 1. So you'll notice I close the quote, put a comma, and then put player 1. So that gives me that. And then the second one, print again, all lowercase. Again, open my nice normal curvy brackets. You'll remember how the shape of the brackets last time around changed the way it acted on the screen. And at the start of the game, your score is, and then I'm going to put comma player score. Now, I almost put a space in that then. So you got player score. Now, when I run that, it says, welcome to the game of Zelda. At the start of the game, your score is 0. So I want to see if you can get that working by just literally copying it. Now, I then want to do some little bits of kind of experimenting with you. So modifying of our PRIMM and investigating. So I want to say, what happens if instead of putting a comma, I put a quote? Sorry, instead of putting a comma, I put a plus sign. And what happens if I don't put anything? So if I run that now, you'll see it crashes on the one that doesn't have anything. So let's try plus on both. And you'll see, welcome to the game of Zelda. And then it's still not wanting to do that one. So it can do a plus if it's a word, but it can't do a plus if it's a number. That's because plus to a number means something. So I can do that. Welcome to the game of Zelda. At the start of the game, your score is 0. So pluses work for words, but they don't work for numbers. For numbers, we've got to use commas. So you can keep it there in that particular way. Now, this time round, I want to show you just a little bit more. So I want to take that same bit of code that you've already made, add a bit to it, and then let you kind of pull it apart and play with it a little bit. So we've got welcome to the game of, and then I'm going to put player 1 equals input, and then I'm going to put who is playing the game, colon, and a single space, just because people tend to like spaces. So player 1 with no spaces in it equals input, all lowercase, who's playing the game. And then I'm going to put, before we do that line again, I'm going to put the line we had before. Now, I could just copy it down from line 4, but I'm going to put welcome to the game. In fact, I'm not. I'm going to just change what it says. Player 1 is, and then put comma player 1. Or let's have it exactly as we've got it up there, plus player 1. Now if I run that, let's watch what happens. So it goes, welcome to the game of Zelda. Why? Because it's looked at player 1, it's gone back when it's seen that to line 1 and said, player 1's Zelda, so it's gone, welcome to the game of Zelda. Then on line 5, in the sequence, it's got down to line 5 after it's done that line 4, it said, who's playing the game? And I've typed in now, I almost typed it on the code there, I've typed in on my game, Andrew. And as I type in my name, Andrew, and then press return, it says player 1 is Andrew. So that's line 6 now. So you see player 1's changed. Player 1's on line 1's disappeared. It's been overwritten. The contents of the container have been changed by what's happened on line 5, so that line 6 now doesn't say Zelda, it says Andrew, because I typed it in on line 5, and then it's got print at the start of the game your score is, and that's not changed from where it's been all the way through. So that gives us that chance to kind of investigate it. Now, if you want to play around and see what's the effect of changing the brackets or other things, do that first. And then I want to look at this and start looking at modifying it. So my next step is going to do some modify. So welcome back to looking at some modify. So we've got welcome to Zelda, who's playing the game, and we've got that. Now, if I want to change this, I could say something like this. Print, you score 10 points. Your score now is, player score plus 10. So you see how that's doing something similar to what we did with line 1, line 4 and line 5. So it prints it differently on line 6 for Zelda. But this time we're doing it with line 2, line 7 and line 8. We're in effect changing the number that's being stored. So this time around it says who's playing the game. We'll stick with the same name as we had last time around. We'll just put in Andrew. And as we put in Andrew there, it then says to me, so let me run that. So Andrew, and then it says player 1 is Andrew. The start of the game, your score is 0. You score 10 points, and your score now is 10. So you can see how it's taken that piece of code and it's changed it. So, can you add to this a second question that asks player 2 and a second score that this time adds 20 to it? Can you do that? And then I'll show you how to do that in a moment. So, let's now think about that second score. So I would put in something like this. Player score 2 is 0. Now you'll notice I'm not adding spaces in again. And then I would put in something along the top that says player 2. Again, I nearly put a space in and you can't. So player 2 is just blank. There's nothing player 2. And then here I can put who is the first player playing the game. And then I do player 2 equals input who is the second player playing the game. And then I can go here, print, and say player 2 is, and then I can put in player 2's name plus player 2. And down the bottom here, if I want to add you score 10 points, your score, let's change the your score to say player 1 and 2 have a score of 0. And I've lost my quote there, so let's put that back in. Now, and then on this one, you score. So let's change that to player 1 scores 10 points. Your score now is player score. And then print player 2 scores 20 points. Your score now is, how will we get the 20, comma, player score 2 plus 20. So you can see that's created a second player. It's printed out that second player's name, and then it's going to print 2 scores. So if I run that, it says who's the first player playing the game, and I put in James. Who's the second player put in the game, and I put in Stephen. Then it says player 1 is James. The start of the game, they both have 0. Player 1 scores 10 points. Your score now is 10. Player scores 20 points. Your score is now 20. So you can see how I've taken those inputs and been able to put them into the game, and I've been able to use a number variable, and I've been able to add to that number variable a number itself. Now, what I'm now going to do with you is a final make. Having made it and modelled it and run it and investigated it, now's time to start the bit that most of you tend to think of as coding in the first place, some making. So let's look at a challenge here and let's see if we can just get this to be made and work and apply the ideas we've just been working with. If you're enjoying this series and you're finding this useful, you can really kind of keep up to date with the content that I'm doing by subscribing on the link below. The make challenge. The make challenge I want you to do is either at a simple level, I want you to write me a piece of code that asks you a person for their first name, then ask them for the surname, and then simply says hello and then their full name. The middle difficulty challenge. I want you to write a piece of code that has a stem line to a joke, why pirates call pirates, lets them type in an answer, pauses, and then tells them the answer to the joke. It's parrots called parrots because they are. Yeah. And then the green one, the hardest task, I want you to simply say, ask the user their name, ask the user their age, and then create a piece of line of code that's going to go in the middle, which will say, on your next birthday, you will be. And if you want to pause the video at this point, that's absolutely fine. But then I'm going to work through the answers to that piece of code. Let's look at those answers. The first challenge asked you to ask the user for their first name. So you could start with first name equals quote quote, and then surname equals quote quote. You don't need to, as you might have picked up as we were doing the kind of modify section before, that you don't need to have blanked those variables beforehand. But then you can go first name is an input where it says, what is your first name? You can then drop a line and go second name is an input. Oh, sorry, it's not second name, it's surname. Surname is an input. What is your surname? And then a print that draws those together that says hello. And now you can use a plus or a comma. It doesn't matter at this stage because of the words. Hello, first name plus surname. Yeah, I've tried to combine them there. We'll see if that works. Now, it won't actually. It'll put them together without the spacing, whereas we put the comma, it'll put the spacing. So if we run that and we go, what's your first name? And I put James. James. And then what's your surname? And I put McLean. And then I press return. It goes, hello, James McLean. So you've got that first task there in terms of what you were being asked to do. And you could have got away, as I say, without doing lines 1 and 2 there in terms of that. Now, let's look at the amber task. The amber task was to ask the joke and then to give the answer. So in this scenario, you really don't care about the answer. You could create one that says answer equals input. What do you call a bear with no teeth? Now, we don't really care about what they put as the answer because it's not like we're going to make a decision that says the right or the wrong. I'm just going to let them type in an answer. And then I'm going to put print a gummy bear. And so if I run that now, it goes, what do you call a bear with no teeth? And I put no, a bit like what do you call a deer with no legs? No idea. Or what do you call a deer with no eyes? No idea. What do you call a bear with no eyes and no legs? Still no idea. There you've got a gummy bear. So you've got that particular answer there for the amber one, and then finally let's do the green one. The green one that simply says name is an input, where we say what is your name. You could have done it like we did it on the red task, where you create that variable beforehand and got name equals quote quote. You could have even done it with both of them there. And then you get age equals input. How old are you? And then I want to do age equals age plus 1. And then I want to say print on your next birthday you will be. Now there's a problem here. So let me show you the problem and then show you how to fix it, because there's a new little skill in here where you've got to tell it something that it doesn't appreciate by just doing that. So when I run that, what's your name? And I put in Matthew, and then how old are you? And I put in 12, and then it says I can't do it. And it's saying I can't do it because it's saying I can't join a string to a number. And age, it thinks this age is a word, a string. So what you can do is this: you can go age equals an integer of age, and that will make it work. So there you can do exactly what we just did. So I could put Matthew in, and I can put in 12, and it says on your next birthday you'll be 13. But there's an even quicker way. So you can do age equals int age like that. Or, and some people find this easier, and some people find what I've just shown you there more straightforward, you can do int, and you can put the int there and say the answer to that input is going to be an integer, and then you don't need that second line. So in effect, you've joined it together. Now that's probably a more complicated way of doing it, and you'll just pick which one of those two you prefer. And so this time around I can do just as we were doing before. I can put in Matthew, and I can put in 12, and it still says on your birthday you'll be 13. So you can see how all that is then working. Now, as I say, please give me a follow. I'll see you on our next session. Keep enjoying coding. So that takes us to the end of our second session. Now, if you're enjoying these sessions, don't forget to subscribe and to give these videos a like. Those will help both of us keep in touch with one another in terms of content. In the next session, what I'm going to look at with you is a little bit more sequences, and having done a little bit more sequences, move to that second massive concept of selection, where you make the program, instead of just do things one after another, make a choice between, am I going to do this or am I going to do that? If I want to do this, or do I want to do that? Otherwise, I want to do that. If else. And that's in our next video.
I started playing basketball,
tennis,
football.
Fútbol cuando era un niño.
Getting really good at something isn't easy.
It takes persistence and hard work.
It takes years of commitment.
Success isn't just about training your body.
It's also about training your mind.
Your body and brain get stronger when you push yourself.
I didn't always know I'd be a basketball champion.
If you can dream it, you can do it.
You can bring any idea to life.
It's not going to be easy.
It takes time and determination like anything else.
You'll make mistakes, you'll get better.
You'll get stronger and you'll succeed.
Push yourself.
Push yourself.
Push yourself.
Push yourself.
You did it.
Oh, respect. Anybody can learn.